Well, I'm excited to be here with Jake Puhl from DEO, and we're having amazing conversations today about many things. Well, one big discussion topic during our conversation earlier has been culture, and as dentists decide to take the next step into entrepreneurship and grow their footprint with multiple practices, one thing that is from all the masterminds and from all the conferences, you hear the C word, which is culture, right? How important culture is in truly driving growth in your organization. And we know what Starbucks did with Howard Schultz. We know what Apple did in terms of instituting a culture that everybody came together with, and that drove a lot of growth in organizations. And dentistry now is at the crossroads where they have to think about culture, because now when you grow your footprint from one office where you can manage everything yourself as a dentist, now you have 10 offices and you can't be in every single office every single day. So what's going to make sure that every office behaves sort of with the same systems of values? And so culture comes into play, right? So what do you do, right? So how do you first determine how do you institute culture? How do you determine there needs to be a culture that can be kind of standardized across all your offices? And how can DEO help with that process?
Yeah, it's a huge subject. No, it's really important. It's another one where if you talk to somebody, with 20, 25 employees, and that's why I use employees a lot of times, because we're just building businesses. Every business needs to worry about culture, right? You talk to somebody with 20, 25 employees and you ask them how important culture is, they'll say, oh, it's pretty important. You talk to somebody with 100 employees and they'll say it's the most important thing, bar none. Wow. So as you get bigger, and this is what we see when talking to a lot of larger folks, culture becomes more and more important, and to the point where it's the only thing that matters, or the main thing that matters at the end of the day. So the first question is, how do you know what is culture, right? There's many different definitions. Some people say culture, when you walk into a room, the feeling you get, that's your culture, right? Some people believe that culture is communication. It's the words that are spoken. It's how people talk to each other. People think that culture is made up of how people behave, all the behaviors that happen. So there's many different ways people quantify or try to really distinguish culture. If you don't know what your culture is or how it's going, the first thing is to ask your team, right? The best thing is you can do it verbally. You can either have a bunch of meetings and just talk with people, or you can do it more formally. You can survey folks and really get, it's about getting honest. Sure. What is it like to work here? What do you think we're all about? And get real feedback. And it's like it's like a marriage. Like, you want to know the real deal. Sure. You want to get to the bottom of the issue in order to solve it. And then it's a long process. There's no quick fix. But the first step is to commit to changing it. And here's the crazy thing: is culture starts with the leadership. So if there's a culture problem in the business, 9 times out of 10 it's because there's a leadership problem. Sure. And part of leadership is actually facing, the actual truth. So it's all wrapped together. But there's very formal ways through surveying and through, skip level interviews, which is where you might, as a CEO, might go and interview somebody that's 2 levels below you, and, sure. And you can, and 360-degree reviews, all these kind of things. But really, it starts with getting committed to changing your culture if it is a problem.
And do you guys recommend that they need to create like a culture document that kind of steps? Okay, here's what our culture is. Here's our values. Is that what you create?
Yeah, so we recommend to talk to a lot of people and see what works for you. I can tell you what has worked for a lot of folks is the clearer that you can get on what your culture is, what you want it to be, sure. And the clearer you can get on who fits that culture, sure. And what the behavioral norms are, and this is what we do in this business, mm-hmm. This is how we behave here, and really outline that and communicate that and beat the drum, every day, every week, every day, every month, every year, every quarter, that this is who we are, this is how we behave. And then the folks that don't fit into that, once you've adequately given them enough of a chance, you've communicated it, then it's about getting letting the people move on to greener pastures who don't fit into that culture.
I was at the annual leadership meeting with Smile Brands, and Steve Bilt introduced this incredible concept called a cultural calendar. It was fascinating because now they have all the stuff, all the activities they're going to do for the year as far as promoting culture on the calendar. So people can look for whether it's a bowling event, whether it's an in-house event, whether it's birthday parties, everything was kind of documented. So people like, okay, here's part of a calendar, and we follow that. Have you seen that? So anyway?
Oh yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things to think about is, if I'm going to ask you your priorities, I don't need to ask you. I just can look at your calendar. I'll look at your calendar and your checkbook, and those two things will tell me what you value. Okay. So if there's nothing on your calendar that's dedicated toward building culture or spending time with the team or brainstorm, whatever it may be, then it's not a priority, right? So Steve, one of the best leaders in the industry, one of the people that I gain a lot of inspiration from, he talks about culture constantly, and he's exactly right. I would agree with that. It's got to be on the calendar. It's got to show me, right, rather than telling me.
And I think it indirectly also affects patient experience, right? Because when people are happy in an office, when they are excited about coming to work and they can talk about their dentist or their office in a positive manner, it affects everything downstream. Patient care is better, patient experience is better, case acceptance rates are better. All of that stuff matters, right? When you have a great culture, it affects downstream. It's going to create better patient experience and better revenue.
Well, one of the interesting things we've seen a few of the larger folks and emerging folks, they're switching it from patient first, which is kind of the traditional way that we think of dentistry, to people first or team first. Because if you treat your team right and you have a good culture and your company's about people, then patient care is what comes. It's actually a result, right? It's a symptom. It's not so you want to get to the foundation, which is your people, and then the result of that will be good patient care.
But you still want to talk about it. Or you don't want to just talk about it. You want to actually implement it, right? And there has to be some steps that you take to institute a good culture. And without that, you're nowhere. You can go and listen to Simon Sinek and feel nice. But at the end of the day, if you don't do specific steps to get there and hold people accountable for that, including the owner, then we're not going to get that done.
Exactly. That's why a lot of people can think that sometimes culture is very fluffy. Like, oh, it's about culture.
Yeah.
Well, it's just there's no actual action steps behind it. So when you actually put on the calendar and actually put time and effort behind it, then it becomes a real thing.
That's fantastic. I think we'll continue this culture dialogue more as we go along. But I'm fascinated by how it impacts not only the practices that I've worked with, but even my own business. And the moment we do something that is positive for the team, instantly we see gains in productivity and morale, which are a big part of employee motivation and retention, which is again a big problem in dentistry. So thank you for this wonderful outlook on culture, and I know you guys are doing some great work in helping dentists uncover that. Thank you, sir.